Hi, PK Young families. We're excited to be with you today and have a conversation about secondary grading at PK Young. We decided to record this webinar because report cards are coming out, and we want to make sure that all of our students, parents, families have an opportunity to look at those report cards and think about the way that we assess at PK and how we're supporting our students toward mastery. You probably hear us say the words standards-based grading or mastery-based grading. If you've had a student at PK Young for any length of time, you've probably heard teachers, administrators, even your students, hopefully, talk about standards-based grading. And what we hope that they're saying in a nutshell is that standards-based grading is really about helping students keep a clear goal in mind and see their progress toward that goal. We want students to really understand that their effort pays off, and that we can all do hard things, we can all learn hard things, and we can all achieve at high levels. And a standards-based system really helps to keep the goals clear and keep us oriented toward what it is we're trying to learn, what it is we're trying to do in school. We like to think about standards-based grading as a learning routine. You can see on this slide that we start by learning a new skill. Maybe it's a new piece of knowledge. We practice that skill. We make mistakes. If we think about writing, we're going to analyze. We're going to fix our mistakes. We're going to ask for help. Our teachers are going to help us. And then we're going to take another try. You know, this slide says we're going to quiz on the skill. Really what that means is we're going to try again, and we're going to try again, and we're going to continue to work toward demonstrating mastery, work towards showing that, hey, we've got it. And that really it's not about a single event or a single assessment. It's really about a process. And that's what we want students to take away from being in school, from taking assessments. We want them to see it as something that's ongoing and not a single event. We also use a 4-point grading scale. And that 4-point grading scale does translate to letter grades. So just like you see on this slide, you've probably seen this slide in your students' courses. If you haven't, you should see this same visual on all of our course syllabi. You'll see this same visual inside of our Canvas courses. So we can see in that far left column, it gives you the mastery language. We talk with students about achieving mastery. We talk with them about being proficient, when they're approaching, when they're just beginning toward a new learning goal or a new learning target. And sometimes we talk about you're not meeting, and then what's happening that's causing you to to not be meeting the benchmark, and what can we do to help? How can we support you? But you see those letter grades, you see the corresponding 4-point range, and then you see an indication of whether or not, especially for our high school learners, we'll talk a little bit more about credits a little bit later, but for our high school learners, whether or not a particular letter grade, a particular score meets the standard for course credit. So as you can see by the chart, if students are failing a course, they don't get course credit, which is also, something that we're pretty used to. Just a little bit deeper around the mastery language. So what you see here is a little more of a definition, right? If we're looking at the left side of the slide, we see mastery, and it says that when we have students demonstrating mastery, that they are showing evidence of meeting those end of year benchmarks, and we see a real depth of knowledge and skill, potentially even extending beyond the benchmark. That's what we see when we're at a mastery level. When students are proficient, they are showing evidence of meeting the end of year standard. When they're approaching, we see that evidence of knowledge and skill development is there, and that with support, we feel that this student is highly likely to meet the end of year standard. When students are beginning, that's indicating that we see minimal evidence. They're at the very beginning of their learning journey and then not meeting. We see that evidence is just not there, that students are meeting the standard. So again, really trying to help students orient toward those clear shared goals. What is it that I'm supposed to be learning? What is it that I'm supposed to be demonstrating? And then where am I at on this learning continuum versus being in a mindset of how many points can I get, right? It's a very different kind of mindset that we're trying to promote with a standards-based system. All right, so what we really want to talk about today is how do you help your kids? How do you check students' progress? And we have a couple of ways in secondary that you can be really connected to both your students' schoolwork and your students' grades. And those two ways are Canvas and Skyward. Skyward has been around for a long time, longer than Canvas, but now I would say, Canvas has been with us for a number of years as well. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the differences. Canvas is our learning management system. Sometimes you've heard that term. Really what that means is Canvas is a space where we can have the students' assignments, student work is getting turned in. As a teacher, I can go into Canvas and I can communicate back and forth with my students. Students can communicate with their teachers. And you as a parent, you can have access by pairing your students' accounts. We have a whole nother webinar on how to do that. And you can always reach out to us here at PK if you don't know how to pair with your students' Canvas, and we're happy to help you do that. There's some contact information at the end of the presentation. So of course, feel free to reach out to a teacher, a counselor, or one of us academic administrators to help get you in touch with the right folks to get you paired. But that Canvas learning management system is also going to show your students' grades in that 4-point mastery scale, which is a little bit different than when we look at Skyward, right? Skyward is being synced with Canvas. You as a parent have a unique login and access to Skyward. Skyward's also the place where you see your students' attendance. We see lots more information about your students' profile. And then in Skyward, you'll see your students' grades reflected in those traditional A through F grade marks. Now, back to that slide that I showed just a few minutes ago, it is aligned. So we see when students are at a 3.4 to 4.0 as an example, then we know that that translates to an A. They have an A in the course. All right, here's another great visual. So on the right-hand side of the screen, you see this is a screenshot taken directly from a student's Canvas course. So if you're in your student's front page of their Canvas, and you scroll down to the bottom, it will say view grades in any of their courses. That's what's really interesting about it. Click on that little view grades button, and then it's going to bring up this little screenshot where you see all of their grades together. So this learner, you can just see by the courses assigned, this is a 7th grade learner, and they have their grade marks there for middle school 2D studio art, for their language arts course, for their mathematics course, their science course. And then we also use Canvas for some of our clubs. We use Canvas for our counselors to communicate. We use Canvas for our advisory courses. And those are places where students don't receive grades. So middle school counseling, as an example, is a Canvas shell that has information for students and talks to them about how to connect with their counseling team and relevant information about school. They don't get a grade in that course. The same with advisory. It's a way to keep kids connected to their advisory teacher, to put information there. They don't get a grade. And then this particular learner is a member of NJHS, National Junior Honor Society. They also don't have a grade there. So you may see on your students' screenshot, you may see that they also have some Canvas courses that they're enrolled in that they don't have grades in, and that's perfectly normal. Again, Canvas is really detailed and it shows student work. So when you go into your students' Canvas courses, what's great about it is not only do you see the score they have on a particular assignment, but you'll often see the assignment. You'll often see the teacher's feedback right there connected to the assignment. And that can be really powerful for you and your student to look at together, talk about ways that they can improve. All right, and then here's a visual from Skyward. So a little bit different than Canvas, Skyward really gives us more of an overview. Skyward is where you'll see your final grades posted by quarter. It does sync to Canvas. So in this screenshot, we can see the assignments that are influencing the student's overall grade. Because Canvas is passing this information right into Skyward. It's not different information, it is the same. The biggest difference is that in Canvas, you're going to see the student's scores on that 4-point scale. And when they translate over here into Skyward, they get translated into those traditional A through F grade marks. So if you're ever thinking like, man, I'm over here in Canvas and I really wish that this would just say C, B, A, if you flip over to Skyward, that's where you're going to see those traditional grades. Skyward is also where we see students' report cards. So this is a little screenshot that gives you the report card location. If you're not familiar with this, we do deliver our students' report cards digitally. and the report card is located under reports. So if you're looking at the left side of the screen, you can see that reports is kind of highlighted in a darker blue. That's because I've clicked on it. When I click on reports, I then can open this up and you'll see that there's some history here, right? So we can even look back into some previous years, 2021 and then 21, 22. We see some report cards there. And then right up at the top, 22, 23 quarter one report card. It's sitting right there, uploaded in here on Friday, October 21st. So those report cards are sitting there for you to view, for you to look at. And you just, again, get to this through Skyward. You click on Family Access. That left-hand side screen is going to come up and you're going to click on Reports. And then when you click on your student's report card, it's going to look like this in secondary, really traditional report card. Again, we want to remind you that lots of detailed information is available through Canvas and Skyward, and we encourage you to go there, take a look at that, explore what's really going on in your student's schoolwork. And if they have an A in their middle school language arts 2 course, like this learner has, we want you as a parent to kind of look at a layer underneath and think about what's contributing to that, what kind of work are they demonstrating. So the top part of the card is where you see the student's data. In this case, we again have a middle grades learner. Their grades are listed there. And then if we go all the way over to the farthest right-hand column, you see a credit earned column. Because this is a 7th grade student and 7th graders don't earn course credit, you see zeros. If we were looking at a high school learner or an 8th grade student who may have some high school coursework on their schedule, then you may see some credit earned. You may see some 0.5 at this point in the year. So you will see those credits earned as we get to the end of the semester, right? Right now, we're just looking at a snapshot. So it would be really unusual. There are some anomalies, but it would be really unusual to see credit earned at this point in that column. Again, I don't want to talk in absolutes because there's always some exceptions, but generally speaking, when we get to the end of semester 1, that's when we'll start to see for our high school learners and for our 8th graders, we'll start to see credit earned. And then of course, at the end of semester 2, again, credit earned. If your students have end of course exams associated with a course, you see those columns sitting there. Again, for this learner, none of the courses that they're currently enrolled in have state assessments that are considered end of course assessments. Now we have some FAST assessments and other things that 7th graders will be taking, but that's where those end of course exam scores would be sitting in those end of course columns. Down below, you see some legends, right? Quite a bit of information here. The major grade mark legend sitting to the left with the A, B, C, D, F. You have a legend for conduct grade marks. In this case, no conduct has been posted. And then we also have our absences listed. So for the marking period, currently we have 38 days of school that have gone by. This learner was there for all 38 days. If your student has days absent or days tardy, they would be listed here. And this is a place to pay attention to, of course, for accuracy of information, but also just to take note. I mean, sometimes I know as a parent, sometimes students can, miss school and maybe we've kind of forgotten like, oh yeah, they've already missed, 3 or 4 days for different reasons. And it's really important that we're mindful of that. And we're trying to make sure that our learners are in school every day if possible. We want those numbers of days absent and days tardy to stay as close to 0 for each of our kiddos as possible. All right, so just a little bit more information. The big takeaway from this slide is that the grades on the quarter 1 first 9 weeks report card, the card that we just looked at, these grades are a snapshot. Some of that information in those upper bullets on the slide really are trying to communicate to you that we have from August when school starts all the way running to the end of semester 1 to the end of what the computer calls quarter 2. Those grades are continuing to build. We've created a situation where students have the full 18 weeks to demonstrate their learning, to demonstrate their understanding before we get to what we consider a final grade. So if you're looking at this card with your student, and you're talking about progress and you're talking about improvement, you can remind them that this is just a snapshot for right now. And we have lots of time to improve upon that. And then when we get to the end, as an example, if you currently on your grade card have a C, when you get to the end, you have every opportunity to have a B, both by the end, but also that B will then translate back into the quarter 1 spot as well. So it's almost like we can only go up from here kind of scenario. We really want kids to orient toward progress and improvement. So sometimes parents ask, what if my students are meeting or at mastery? This means that they are demonstrating the standards for the course at the time. And when we get to the end of the year, when students are meeting or at mastery, we know that they're a good candidate for having lots of rigorous coursework in their schedule. They can handle it. Counselors may be working with you to recommend enrichment opportunities. And then for our learners who they're showing performance at that beginning or not meeting level, we know that they may need some extra support. So you might start receiving communications from the school about summer school opportunities, about summer intervention opportunities. When students are failing particular courses that are required for graduation or they need those credits, oftentimes we're going to be setting up opportunities for them to repeat those particular courses for credit recovery. And looking into the next year and how we provide those interventions and supports that they may need to be successful. So we're paying attention to your students' learning. We're paying attention when they're beginning or not meeting. We want to partner with you to make sure that we're supporting each of the students that come to school here at PK. Just a few reminders, daily home reading, math practice nightly, daily reviewing Canvas in each course. I know as a parent that having your students sit down, open up that Chromebook, having them look at each course, think about what did I do today in relation to my learning goals? What am I going to do tomorrow in relation to my learning goals? Is there something in here that I could be studying, that I could be looking over, that I could be rereading, even if they're saying like, I don't have homework? Often there's reading and there's practice that can be done nightly. And we want students to be remembering to just take a bit of time each night and to review what they've been doing in school before they come in the next day. All right. So this concludes our webinar. Remember that your students' teachers are your first partners, and don't ever hesitate to reach out to a teacher to ask questions, to just establish great communication. We ask our teachers to do the same. So we hope that you're hearing from your students' teachers. Counselors are a great resource. So in addition to your students' teachers, each of our students has a counselor assigned to them. And our counselors are always reaching out and wanting to partner with parents and families on how we can make sure that students are receiving all of the supports that they need and that families understand how to see their students' progress in school. And then our secondary academic leadership team, Trinia Shepard is our assistant principal of academic achievement. I'm Christy Gabbard. I'm the director of secondary programs, and Carrie Geiger is our K-12 principal. And we always love to hear from our families. We love to hear from parents, and we always want to stay connected and answer questions when we can. So please don't hesitate to reach out, and don't forget to go into Skyward and access those report cards because they're sitting there waiting on you. And we hope you have a great end to your week, and go Blue Wave.